I took one lesson, I fell in love, and my entire life changed. I literally had never wanted anything that badly. I don't think I will ever want anything or love anything as much as I loved that sport and who I was when I skated. So I told my parents I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I trained like 10 hours a day, and I gave up my friends and my schooling and every single thing I could because I just wanted this dream so badly. I injured nearly every part of my body. I broke probably all of my toes. At one point, I had a skate to the head. I had a fracture in my femur that I skated on for 4 months. I tore my ankle. I broke my tailbone twice. I mean, everything you can imagine. And I kept going until one injury kind of took me out. And I don't know if I ever recovered. I got up and I started skating when people didn't know about it. So my mom didn't yell at me for ruining my ankle. I started working out again. I signed up for proper classes and went back to getting straight A's. And
So he inspired you to do that just by reading about
just
it?
to get up.
Wow.
When the entire world is laughing at you, to have that much faith in yourself and your message and what you stand for, whether you like him politically or not, like everyone should be able to be inspired. The following summer, my brother and I volunteered for his campaign. I said, I want to do more. I want to be involved in this. And the girl who wanted to be an Olympian, came back in me. I wrote a letter to the director of the data department on the campaign, kind of saying, hey, let me fix your volunteer operation, and here's everything that's wrong with it. And he called me the next day, and I was on the Trump campaign.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. And as always, my friends, you're getting used to this. I give all the praise, honor, and glory and thanksgiving to our God for that. I spent a few days in New York the last week, and look, I always like visiting my hometown. The city is great. I was up in Utica, New York. That was terrific too. Spoke in front of about 500 men one day and then did 3 services in church, and it was just great. People up there are great. I always feel at home when I get to New York. I can't help it, even though I've been out in California now for like 35, 40 years, but I love the city and I love New York and I love all the people. But I had a real pleasure in sitting down with my guest today. Her name is Elizabeth Pipko. If you don't know her, you will at some point in time. I promise you that. What a story she's got. A beautiful young girl who had a modeling career. She's now a media personality, but she suffered a real trauma in her life, real tragic, something I can relate to because many of you know my daughter Julia had a tragic experience when her ex-boyfriend, soon to be a fiance, had overdosed and obviously, died on fentanyl. I didn't want to get into it. We talked about it before. But she had something different happen to her, but seriously traumatic. And the way she's been able to overcome adversity and the things that she's going to tell you that helped her overcome that adversity might be a real shocker to you, to many of you out there, for sure. But it's true. She's going to tell her story. I don't need to repeat it. She's terrific at it. She's very, very well spoken, a beautiful young woman. So without any further delay, my very special guest, all you ladies need to listen to this. All you young girls, please listen to her interview. It's going to help you. You're going to be impressed. I promise you that. Elizabeth Pipko. Well, Elizabeth, pleasure to have you. Been looking forward to this. And I have to say, you have a very inspirational story, to say the least.
You
A little
too,
bit
by the
different.
way.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. But I think it's a story that really would inspire any young woman, any young person at all. And I want to get into that a little bit. I know a bit about your history. And tell us how it all began. I know you were a figure skater. And pick it up from there.
Yeah, so I kind of like you said, I assumed in looking back, my life kind of started when I found skating. Before that, I just kind of had the best, most wonderful childhood anyone could ever have. And as great as it was, I don't know how much it really shaped me because it's the hard times really that shape you.
Right.
I basically was an overachieving young little nerd who had the best friends and the best parents and the best grandparents and the best school, and everything was amazing. Went to Florida on a vacation, basically ended up at an ice skating rink, found a coach that my dad said was the only person worth ever taking a lesson with if I wanted to ice skate. Basically, I think he recognized her back from being a champion back in the Soviet Union. I took one lesson, I fell in love, and my entire life changed. I literally had never wanted anything that badly. I still to this day don't want anything. I don't think I will ever want anything or love anything as much as I loved that sport and who I was when I skated. So I told my parents I wanted to go to the Olympics. This was a girl who had never done sports before.
Really?
I was 10 years old, which for figure skating is like 8 years too late to start.
Mm-hmm.
Did not come from an athletic family. This came completely out of nowhere. And my parents, who have always believed in every one of my crazy dreams, said, okay. And my mom picked up our life and moved everything to Florida. My dad flew between America and Europe every single week. My
Really?
dad worked between New York and Europe. So when we moved to Florida, basically my dad's schedule was like Monday, Tuesday, New York, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in Europe, Saturday, Sunday in Florida.
Wow.
He didn't miss one weekend in the few years that we were
You
there.
know, it's funny that you found ice skating in
In
Florida.
Florida. Yeah. People always say that it's one of the biggest skating states, actually.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I fell in love and that was it. And I trained like 10 hours a day and I gave up my friends and my schooling and my health, every single thing I could, because I just wanted this dream so badly. I injured nearly every part of my body. I broke probably all of my toes at one point. I had a skate to the head. I had a fracture in my femur that I skated on for 4 months. I tore my ankle. I broke my tailbone twice. I mean, everything you can imagine.
Wow.
And I kept going until one injury kind of took me out. And I don't know if I ever recovered from losing that dream.
To all my friends and followers out there, question, are you enjoying Franzese wine? I already know the answer. So many of you have sent me comments and talked about how you're enjoying the wine. Well, how about this? Now you have a chance to actually become part of the company, get a piece of the action. Look at all of our new products, our pomegranate wine, our blackberry wine that I'm enjoying, I really love. We also have our Areni, our Malbec, all great products. We're in all the major retail stores right now. Tremendous growth over the past couple of years. Those people that got involved early on in our first We Funder campaign have seen massive growth. They're all very happy. Well, now you have a chance, probably the last chance, to get involved again. Go to invest.franzesewine.com and register for our webinar. We're going to break it all down, tell you exactly where we've been and exactly where we're going. This is your chance. It's an offer you shouldn't refuse, probably the last time. Invest.franzesewine.com. Register now.
But what I learned about myself and about the world in the few years that I skated, and I had that, I think, is the reason I am who I am. And if I had never found skating, I don't think I'd be doing anything that I'm doing now, which is like a strange way to think about things. But that's when I realized that you can be different and you can fall in love with things and you can have a passion and you can work hard and people are not always going to like you for any of those things. And that's unfortunately a tough lesson to learn for a kid, but I think a really important
Well, you know
one.
what? I can relate to it a bit because my wife and I have 3 daughters, and my wife was a dancer. I met her when she was 19, and all of my daughters are dancers. And my youngest one really had a passion for it. I mean, she's been dancing since she's 3, I think. I went to more dance competitions than you can imagine. And, you know, something we can get into a little bit later, but during COVID, she didn't want to get the vaccination,
Mhm.
and everybody just dropped her. Couldn't work.
Yeah.
So she kind of got really frustrated with that and let it go, and now she's doing other things. But I understand that passion in young women, you know,
Yeah.
when they really find something.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I still can't explain it. You know, like a 10-year-old kid who's never skated in her life, never did a sport, just waking up and saying, I want to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But I fell in love and I loved every minute of it. And I loved the hard stuff more than anything. I loved being screamed at by coaches and pushing my body to a limit that I don't think it ever, or I never thought beforehand that it could have
Were you
reached.
training every day?
7 days a week, up to 10 hours a day. I mean, I lived at the rink because I had been told by coaches, and it was true, that I had to catch up for the fact that I started way too late. So I'm 10 years old learning basic skills, realizing every 10-year-old around me is doing double and triple jumps. So I'm literally standing on, we had like a balcony in our apartment. I'm on the balcony at night so I don't wake up my parents, like doing jumping jacks. I'm in the hallway training like double and triple jumps on the floor. I was in the gym 24/7. I was always broken, probably because I was pushing my body so hard. But I mean, for a little kid, I don't even know where that comes from. I still don't know where it came from.
You're
But
just driven. You were driven from
yeah, I
birth,
mean,
I guess. Yeah.
I've always been driven, but it's such a random thing to pick up and fall in love with.
Yeah.
But it changed my life for sure.
Wow. Well, and we'll get to that. There was something else that changed your life, but I know I read that after you had that injury and couldn't compete any longer, it really got to you. You were depressed.
Beyond depressed. I mean, like, to paint a picture, you have daughters, so you'd understand. I had been homeschooled for many years because didn't have time to go to school because I'm a competitive athlete. So I'm homeschooled basically with my little brother, who to this day is my best friend, but that's really my only classmate. I'm virtual school, so I don't even have teachers. I have the
My
computer.
daughter the same.
Yeah, I have a
Homeschooling.
few friends at the rink, but we're not really supposed to be friends because we're competitors, but maybe a few. I was a 16-year-old girl, so I didn't have a lot of friends. I had never been on a date, obviously.
Mm.
I mean, I looked like a little athlete girl. I don't consider myself pretty, obviously. I don't know how to like even talk to or keep up with other 16-year-olds. I'm in a cast up to my knee, which I'm told is going to stay on for probably 6 to 9 months.
Mm.
And I have to give up my life. So we left Florida, came back to New York because I had kept my family there for so long. There was no point anymore. I show up back to my childhood bedroom in New York with this cast on my leg, no friends, no future, no goals in, virtual school. All my friends from, growing up are in high school, looking at colleges, they're going on dates, they're at parties. And I am being pushed around by my brother in a wheelchair in Central Park to try to, you know, keep some semblance of a normal life. I just had no idea what to do with myself. I had thrown away my health and my education and all these things for this goal of the Olympics.
And you're 16, 17 now?
16, yeah. I'm
16.
basically told I'm never going to skate again. Doctor said my injury was so bad that I probably wouldn't feel comfortable running or wearing heels or anything again. They were very much wrong.
Mm.
But I mean, I'm in my brain, my life is over. Like I just laid in my bed and sobbed for probably a year straight because I had no idea what to do. And then when you're 16, 17, you get your cast off and you meet other 16, 17-year-olds who feel the same way you do and encourage really stupid behavior. And I just did nothing for many years. I never did drugs or anything I regret, but truly just wasted away for a couple of years doing absolutely nothing.
I'm sure your parents were really upset. Not upset with you, but
Scared,
upset with
I
the
think.
situation.
Yeah,
Scared,
they
yeah.
kind of stayed out of it, surprisingly. I think they realized that I had to kind of snap out of it myself. And also, we have like a weird but amazing situation where my brother and I truly are best friends and we look out for each other. So I think they knew that like my little brother was up until 4 a.m. until I got home every single night and he was checking
Really?
in on me. And if something was really, really bad, he probably would have told them. But yeah, they kind of just, I think, were hoping that the old Liz would come back. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you do when your kid's dream is gone and when
Right.
you supported it too? So they're the people who allowed me to leave
Right.
school and to do all these things. So I'm sure they felt a little bit of pressure too to make sure that I knew that my life was going to be okay. But it was a really, really bad few years. Like looking back, that's my biggest regret is just letting probably almost 3 years just completely waste away.
Mm. And then something happened. Your mom was walking her dog in Central Park.
She was, yeah. So you know the story better than
I
I do.
do.
My mom, so in Florida, ironically, during some exams, there's like yearly exams that kids take. When you're homeschooled, you take it at like the local high school. So my mom was waiting in the car to pick me up from the school when I was doing one of the yearly tests, and she found, I guess, this small dog in the road. My mom is the kindest person in the world and the biggest animal lover. And it was a tiny little Pomeranian who was obviously, beaten and abused. And she rescued this dog. And after she got him cleaned up, we realized he was like a purebred little teacup Pomeranian, the cutest thing I'd ever seen, clearly used for breeding and thrown away. So she obviously rescued this dog. She was walking him in Central Park, and a photographer was, I guess, doing some kind of shoot where their dog, who they hired, had canceled. They asked to use Timmy, our dog, for the shoot. And then to repay my mom asked her to do a photo shoot with me because I was, depressed. And I think my mom knew that every girl wants to be, a model. So maybe that would make me feel better. We had the shoot. She sent the photos over to Wilhelmina, which is one of the biggest agencies in
Yes.
the world. And for God knows what reason, I got a modeling contract that week.
Wow.
And that definitely changed my life a
Just
little
like
bit.
that, just from the photos.
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, it's God. Everything is
Yeah.
God. And, only now do I realize that. But yeah, just like that.
I just have to ask you something. This may seem like out of place, but did the dog have any impact on you at all? Getting that little dog, did it?
I mean, I like animals. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's more my mom than the dog. Like
All right.
watching her, my mom literally sat there with this dog in a hospital once a month as he was getting this test and that test, and my mom was told to put the dog down because he had congestive heart failure, something else. So watching her save the dog, I think, had more of an impact. But yeah, I love the
Well,
dog.
the reason I ask is because, just a side thing, my daughter went through some traumatic time,
Yeah.
and she got this dog she rescued, and that kind of changed her life. We still have
So the dog was
yeah.
more my mom's. He
More
was
your mom,
attached.
okay.
But I did have a cat who recently died. It was my best friend in the world. So Simba
Okay.
changed my life a little.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always give
So
credit.
now you got this great modeling contract, and
Yes.
you're working. Did it kind of snap you out of the skating thing a bit, or?
I'd say a little bit, but it almost made it worse because now I was thrown into an equally dangerous environment, but without the passion. You know, like it's the same thing. It's the same people telling me I'm too short or too tall or too fat or, you know, have to catch up to other girls or not pretty enough. It's kind of the same beatdowns you get in the
Yeah.
sport, but at least in the sport, you can fight to be the best. Modeling is subjective and it's based on who's the prettiest. Like, it's not something I wanted to have like a
Mm-hmm.
passion for because it's almost a dirty industry. It was cool, but it was also strange because, again, imagine I'm that girl, I'm 17, I've never kissed a boy, never gone on a date,
Really?
and I'm like modeling in swimwear campaigns. So it's like a very weird situation because everyone looks at me in this way, not realizing I've literally never kissed a boy at that point,
Wow.
and I'm still the nerdy homeschooled girl. So it was like a weird thing to realize that I'm being thrown back into New York City life, but I'm not a high school girl like my friends are at this point, or my friends from growing up. I am a model at the biggest agency in the world, you know, posting in GQ and doing these things, but I haven't caught up to just being a 17-year-old yet. So it's very strange, you know,
Did you enjoy
times.
the work?
I don't know how much I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed afterwards. So when I was in middle school, I was bullied a lot and I really prayed hard. It's almost embarrassing to say, but I prayed to be pretty. Like
Mm.
I was like, God, please, like I was bullied for everything. And I was just like, please, like make me pretty so people will stop attacking me.
Well, he
So
responded. He
he
answered
did.
your prayer.
He did. But for me, I mean, I think I was always that little girl. Like I still feel like that 12-year-old girl. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember that girl who ate lunch in the bathroom because her friends were bullying her.
Wow.
So to feel like that girl, but then be at these parties with like top models and celebrities and then be in magazines, it didn't make sense in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I enjoyed, you know, flipping a magazine and seeing my face, but I don't know how much I really understood what was going on because again, I felt like I was still that little homeschooled girl and
Right.
people looked at me in a different way. So I felt like no one was ever going to know who I was. And that has remained steady since everything I've taken on since then. But, you know, people are looking at the girl in the magazine and thinking all these things, and I'm still crying over my sport, terrified to go on a date with a guy, trying to catch up on high school math in my bedroom that I share with my little brother. Like, my life didn't make too much sense.
Yeah. So you're moving along in your modeling career, and then
Yeah.
something else happens. You've
Yeah.
had a lot of defining moments in your life so far at a young age. So what happens next?
Yeah. So, I mean, the modeling was amazing, and I'm obviously better. You know, I'm going to these casting calls, I'm doing things, but I was still wasting away. Like, to be perfectly honest, I don't think I was really doing much. I was flunking out of a few college courses. Like, my parents like straight A's. I had never wanted to be like I got a B in high school and they made me retake the course altogether. Like
Really?
yeah, my parents are hardcore. So for me, they were happy I was even getting up and doing anything, but I really was still wasting away. I had the modeling to keep me going kind of, but with that came invitations to stupid parties and, you know, not the best friends in the modeling industry. Like I really wasn't doing anything still. And then at night I was still truly just in bed weeping about my sport. Like just I still didn't recover. I still haven't recovered, but that was all that I wanted. And then my little brother, who I will always give credit for everything, said to me, like, you need to get your act together. Like, no one else is going to tell you, but you were wasting away. Get it together. And I said, how do you want me to do that? And he said, look up Donald Trump
Really?
and buy his book. I think he had it. He gave me his book. It was Think Big and Kick Ass. And he told me to start watching his videos. I think at that point, it was rumored that Donald Trump was going to run for president, but he hadn't announced yet. So like early 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 19 years old. I didn't really understand what my brother was talking about. Now I obviously very much understand. But throughout the course of that year, I started watching this man, reading his words as well, but watching this man, I think it was about the point where he announced, maybe after that, he's polling at 1%. The entire world is laughing. I mean, really hardcore laughing at him.
Yes.
And he's getting up every day saying, I'm going to be the next president. And so my brother clearly not only looked up to him for the right reasons, but knew that that's what I needed in my life because I thought that my life was over. And my brother was like, he's being tormented by the universe. I mean, everyone is laughing at him. People that were his friends,
I remember.
Democrats, Republicans, internationally here. I mean, he was a laughing stock. That's what they wanted. They wanted this like reality TV star to have 1% in the polls and never to be heard from again in his political career. And he was confident that he was going to be president. And like that piece of like faith in yourself is something I had never seen before at that level. And it wasn't even confidence in himself. It was almost like confidence in what he believed in. I had never seen that like up close like this. And I was living it like we all were as Americans, just watching this happen.
You remember
And-
all the alleged experts that said he'll never be president?
Of
They made a
course.
joke
We're
out of
still
it.
hearing from the same alleged
Still the same
experts.
thing, yes.
Yeah, and so I got up and I started skating when people didn't know about it. So my mom didn't
Really?
yell at me for ruining my ankle. I started working out again. I signed up for proper classes and went back to getting straight A's. And
So he inspired you to do that just
yeah,
by
just
reading about it?
just to get up.
Wow.
Like, I mean, again, what I went through was horrible and I'm still, sad about it. But when the entire world is laughing at you, to
Mhm.
have that much faith in yourself and your message and what you stand for, whether you like him politically or not, like everyone should be able to be inspired by that. And then the following summer, my brother and I volunteered for his campaign
Mm.
twice, honestly. And then I said, like, I want to do more. I want to be involved in this. And the girl who wanted to be an Olympian, like, came back in me. I wrote a letter to the director of the data department on the campaign, kind of saying, hey, let me fix your volunteer operation. And here's everything that's wrong with it. I asked an intern to bring it upstairs. God clearly interfered because he read it that
Mm.
day and he called me the next day and I was on the Trump campaign 48
Wow.
hours later.
Wow.
Yeah, and as they say, the rest is
And
history.
you're
There was a
19,
lot.
20 years old now.
I just turned 21 that
Oh.
summer, so it was right after my 21st birthday. I told them I would not work without my brother,
Mhm.
so they hired my little brother as well, who was more qualified to be there than I was.
Was that
And
here in New York?
you're in
Yeah.
Trump Tower.
Trump Towers. Wow.
And my brother and I are 21 and 18 on the Trump campaign, like just on a presidential campaign, like going from crying in my bedroom that my life was over to a real staffer on a presidential campaign.
And when was the first time you got to meet him?
So I met him a few times, obviously. It's funny, I met him when I was a little girl because where I skated in Central Park was run by the Trump organization. So he
Right.
would come to some
Right.
competition. So I'd seen him there. I met him at a book signing in 2015. I actually asked him to sign my skate because I just started skating again, and it was because of him. And even though his security told me I couldn't because it was like a threat to bring my skate out, I asked him, and he said, "Yeah, whip it out. I'll do whatever you need."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, this guy is really cool." Then I spoke to him on the campaign for the first time, actually after the Access Hollywood tape came out.
Mhm.
He ended up on my
Yeah.
floor of the campaign office. I think I was the only girl around, and he just walked over and asked for my opinion. And then spent some time with the family. We kind of stayed in Trump world after he won, even though I decided not to go to the White House or do anything political. I wanted to get my degree and get my life in order. But I met my husband on the 2016 campaign
She worked in the
as
campaign.
well.
Yeah.
Yes, so more moments from God.
Mhm.
And he stayed involved. My brother stayed involved, and we've been involved ever since. The Trump family has been wonderful to us. And then in 2024, when I was asked to be the spokesperson for the Republican Party, that's when I spent a lot more time with, the family, the team, the president, and, kind of got to live that moment where you go back to being 21 years old and volunteering for this guy and then realizing you are now the face of the Republican Party on the president's plane, hanging out with him as you fight to win another election.
By the way, some people don't realize it's a great story how he took the skating rink in Central Park when
It
it
is.
was dormant for so many years.
Yeah.
And he took it over and got it done quickly.
And by the way, they just took it away from him.
Yeah, I
Again,
heard
for no
that.
reason, just because they think it's like a dig at Donald Trump, when in
Yeah.
reality he was running it for the city. It
Right.
had nothing to do with him, but
Yeah.
that's what they do.
Well, that's TDS.
Even if
as
it
we know.
costs the city and the people you're supposed to be working for, as long as it hurts Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
TDS. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
And then you've kind of risen in the ranks of Donald Trump now, and you're a confidant of his. You're still a spokesperson for the Republican
I'm not. I
National
left
Committee.
after
You
we
left
won,
that.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I was on Fox News last night, so I'm still doing the commentary. But
Right.
for the first time in a long time, I'm just speaking as myself, which is a nice change as well
Yeah.
for me.
And during this time, you managed to get a degree at Harvard. And we'll get into what's going on there at Harvard now.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because you're Jewish heritage. What do you think all this backlash, where does it all originate from? I mean, honestly, I'm a Christian, and we support Israel, obviously. And we always knew that there was anti-Semitism in the world, obviously, but I never witnessed it to a degree that we're seeing now. And I quite honestly don't understand it. And I understand things pretty well. I just don't get it. Where is this all coming from, especially on the college level? All these young people who really don't know what the heck is going on, in my opinion. They just took that position for whatever reason. And to me, it has to be born within the colleges itself. Something's got to be going on there.
Yeah, no, 100%. A lot is going on there. So my experience with Harvard was very different from most people. I got in early on, and then I dropped out. Like I said, I was flunking out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went online through the Harvard Extension School. It took me like 6 years for a degree. I was on the Trump
Mm-hmm.
campaign. I was off. I was in. I spent, a few months on campus a year. So it wasn't a long time. And then a few years later, when I went and got my master's at Penn, that's when I really got, a glimpse of the school system because I was
Mm-hmm.
in it. I was meeting with these people. I, had friends because I hid who I was. And that's when I realized like how skewed everything was. I mean, I have a degree in like social policy and nonprofit leadership. There should be
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with Donald Trump in those classes. And in my nonprofit law class, you literally had to answer questions on how Eric and Don Jr. are breaking the law. Like these are
Really?
the assignments that I'm getting. Yeah, I mean, I have screenshots on my phone because I wanted to save everything.
Wow.
Like these are just this is what I'm doing. So I realized it's actually very difficult to not be brainwashed. And I mean, I mentioned my parents with the skating. I know how lucky I am to have the support system I have. For me, my idol in the world, like if I think about who I think is the smartest person in the world that I want to learn everything from, it's my dad. So when I have a
Mm-hmm.
question, I go to my dad. If you don't have that in your life, and I know I'm privileged to have it, you go to those professors.
Mm.
And if those professors have these views and they become your idols, they become your icons, your inspirations, and your teachers at the same time, it is very easy for them to rub off on all these students and to kind of brainwash them with whatever it is they want to put in their heads. Critical thinking has gone out the window because the professors think it's their position in life not to teach these kids to think, but to teach them to take on their own personal views. And if you look at the stats, I mean, majority of professors in universities, especially at these Ivy League schools, lean so far left. They're not just Democrats. I mean, they are proud socialists.
Progressive
Yeah,
socialists,
huge
yeah.
progressives. So,
So they're actually teaching anti-Trump
yes.
curriculum, I would say, in the colleges.
That have, I mean, this was not a political degree. It was not a government class, not a political science course. It had nothing to do with politics. It was a nonprofit law class. And the example for one of my papers was imagine Don Jr. and Eric Trump are breaking the law by doing this.
And they just picked them out.
Yeah, because it's
Wow.
because they must be breaking, it's things like that. And it was hypothetical,
Yeah.
but you could have really chosen
Could have chosen somebody else.
Bobby and Billy. You didn't
Yeah.
have to give us names and I mean,
Right.
that's what they do. I mean, actually, my first day of class at Penn was the day that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was wearing black, and it was America's funeral. And it wasn't just the students, which I, might not support the same views they support, but I support people doing whatever they want. If you think it's America's funeral, you wear black and you cry, and I get it. But it was the professors who said, today we're not learning our curriculum. Today we're taking the day to discuss why this was the wrong decision and why abortion matters. That's the problem. I think everyone should do whatever they want. And if a friend of mine in my college course, outside, doesn't matter, wants to mourn this decision and takes it personally, they should. It's America.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't pay for my professors to give me their opinion on Roe v. Wade. That's not why I was in that course. And that was all we did for at least that day, but a few more days after as well. I mean, that's all they talked about. So for them, they think it's their responsibility to mold these kids. And unfortunately, for a lot of them, that's all they have is these professors. I mean, they're educated, they're in leadership positions. And if you don't have a support system at home to go back to, if you don't love your parents, for example, the way I love mine, I know a lot of kids that go to college to get away from their parents. If you don't want to call your dad with a question, you want to go to your professor, what happens is after 4 years, you take on all these views of those professors. It's almost impossible to leave because they are not spending their time teaching people to think critically. They're just spending their time making sure their views are taken on by all these other kids.
Can I ask you this, just in a summation? What was their reason for saying the Roe versus Wade decision was so horrible? I mean, just break it down, bottom line. Why was it so horrible?
They think abortion is a fundamental right of people.
But did they not understand that all the Supreme Court said is send it back to the states?
No.
Period.
And that they also don't understand that half of the women in this country don't agree with them on abortion.
Did they understand that and just dismiss it? Or did they really not understand
I
it?
think
Because the
this is-
decision was easy.
this is
Send
the
it back to the
point.
states.
When you go to college, especially you're paying, the kind of money you pay for these Ivy League schools, if you're at the University of Pennsylvania and a Supreme Court decision as monumental as this comes down, what an amazing opportunity to have a debate in your class.
Mm-hmm.
And for a professor to explain what actually happened here and to say, this is why it's bad, this is why it's good, and like share an opinion. Like, what an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because, when these things happen, they go down in history. This was a huge deal. Instead, it was like, let's not critically think. Let's not worry about why this might have happened. Let's admit this happened because Donald Trump is a racist or Donald Trump is a misogynist and he packed the Supreme Court with racists and misogynists and we have to mourn. Like, it would have been so much better for a professor to take the opportunity to be at this institution with students who are, I mean, pretty smart, pretty apparently pretending at least, but they think that they're interested in learning. What a great opportunity to have that discussion.
Right.
But they didn't do that. We didn't even talk about the decision. Everyone showed up and everyone wore black and everyone mourned the fact that this was a horrible day in American history. And it's just so sad because you can have that debate and discussion. People can leave with the same views they came in with, but at least an open mind about people that disagree with them. But they don't want that. They want a bunch of kids that come out hating those that disagree with them. And these are, I mean, they're young people, but this is the future of the country. I was in school a few years ago. Now I'm spokesperson for the Republican Party. Like, my age is what people, I mean, that's people are
Yeah.
doing big things in their 20s and 30s now. And they're molding these kids to hate everything that we love about America, and more importantly, to hate people that disagree with them, which is the opposite of what we are. It's so basic to debate abortion and realize that people come from different backgrounds and have different viewpoints. It doesn't make you a bad person. But they refuse to even contemplate that that's possible.
So really, all of this progressive far left thinking is really being bred through the universities.
Yeah, 1,000%.
They're instilling these kind of thoughts in these young people's mind. Because I'll tell you this, Elizabeth, you're too young to remember, but back in the day when I grew up, I mean, I grew up as a Democrat. My whole family was Democrats. But there wasn't much difference between Democrat and Republican ideology. It wasn't that different. You certainly didn't not go to dinner with people because they had a different, political opinion than you. But it's gotten so far out of hand now, so far out of hand. And I'll tell you this, getting to Trump, people accuse me all the time of being in awe of Trump and all of this. And I said, listen, I'm going to be 74 years old. I'm not in awe of anybody except my God. I just happen to think he's the voice of reason.
Yeah.
If his name wasn't Trump and it was somebody else, he's just a reasonable person saying reasonable things that most Americans, at least that I grew up with, believe in. But it's gotten so far to the other way, so far divisive, that I'm really concerned about this country.
No, I agree.
I don't know. I mean, I thought for a while that, okay, they elected him. He had a mandate. There's no question. But now, there seems to be, again, such a driving force on the other side. I don't know where it's going to.
Yeah, because they have no argument. That's the problem. Like, all they have is to create more and more division and chaos. Otherwise, they have to come up with their own popular policies, and they don't have anything left because
There's
he
no
took all the
policies.
common sense policies. Like, he always says, I'm not conservative, I'm common sense.
Mhm.
And it's true, he's not this hardcore right wing person. They claim he is. They say far right because it, sells newspapers in a headline. But in reality, when he was running in 24 in the primary against, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, he was running against real far right people.
Mhm.
He was just a moderate common sense guy, and they don't know what to do with themselves. Like, he took every common sense policy away. The only way for them to raise money off their supporters, the only way for them to appear in the headlines, to be in media and get clicks, is to say outlandish things and to create division. They
Yeah.
have nothing else. And I mean, that's kind of what our culture breeds now, when social media is what it is, when, the networks are failing and need people to watch, when people need clicks and everything's behind a paywall. I mean, the only thing they can do is push, I mean, I don't want to say nonsense, but outlandish things that, get people to click and make them money. And I think for Donald Trump, when he was polling at 1%, he believed that if he kept talking and enough people heard his message, eventually it would resonate and he'd be polling at 2 and 3 and 4 and then eventually be president. The Democrats don't have that in them. Most people
No.
in politics don't have it in them. I don't know any Republican before Donald Trump who had it in them either.
I
They just
agree.
went by the playbook and, hoped it would work out because their consultants told them that it would. That wasn't Donald Trump, and it worked for him in a way that no one had ever seen before. I don't think anyone on either side actually knows what to do moving forward because he has set a precedent that they have to follow because people now expect transparency. They expect the guy who will talk to anyone. You asked me before I sat down, anything off the table. How can I say something's off the table when I just worked for Donald Trump, who won the election because nothing was ever off the table? Because he's transparent, because he wants to tell the people exactly what's on his mind and let them decide for themselves, something no politician has ever done. And now everyone moving forward, Republican and Democrat, has to do the same. And Republicans are in a good spot because he's the leader of our party.
Mhm.
But Democrats don't know where to start. I mean, they don't know where to start. How do you do that when you've operated a different way your entire life?
Exactly. And when their greatest cause now becomes bringing an illegal immigrant
Yes.
back from Venezuela, it's insanity. They haven't learned anything. But you said something very interesting in an interview. You said, had you just looked at things that are out there about Donald Trump, you might have hated him also. But then you started to look into things and you saw that there was more lying about him than anything else. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I never went through that. Like I said, my brother put me on to Donald Trump, the candidate, even before he announced. I got in early on, But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and try to understand, their thinking, because I know a lot of very reasonable, decent, smart people who told me, outlandish things. Donald Trump is Hitler and a Nazi. All these psychotic things. And I'm thinking to myself, how did these normal people get to this point? You can hate every policy of his and not speak this way about him. Something must have happened. And if you do a very simple 5-minute Google search without any background, it is very easy to take away all of their views and to think the worst things about him. What American has the time when people are trying to put food on the table and work? Many people work 2-3 jobs, and people are, worried about their kids and their families. Not everyone has the time to do a deep dive on every single headline. And so enough people have seen what they've seen without getting the backstory. And I don't want to judge them, because there's so many hoaxes surrounding Donald Trump that if you just believe 2 or 3 of them, it's enough to really despise the guy.
Right.
And if I had time to sit with every American and show them the actual tape of what he said or explain the backstory, I could change a lot of minds. Donald Trump, I think if he sat with everyone, could change every mind. But the American people don't have the time for that, and I want people to understand that, because the same hate that's on the left, and there's a lot of it, we have some of it on the right, and I want people to know that there's a way to talk to other people who disagree with you, and you can put yourself in their shoes and realize not everyone has had the knowledge that you've had, the time that you've had. I literally know the president and his family, so I can't expect someone else to see him the way that I see him. But if you do a 5-minute search, even now, before I do a TV interview and I try to catch up on, some news of the day, it takes some time to get to the truth, because there's so many headlines that are just, the opposite of true. You mentioned the MS-13 member who was deported. I saw, to this day, I am falling for this nonsense. I saw a story that said that the picture that Donald Trump posted with the guy's knuckles with the MS-13 tattoo on it was a Photoshop picture. And I'm thinking to myself, did we put out a Photoshop picture? It doesn't sound like us. I fell for it. I had to click into the story. And only once you hit the very bottom of the story, 18 paragraphs in, are they saying the picture wasn't Photoshopped. But the White House put out the picture with it saying MS-13 on top of each knuckle to explain what each symbol represented. And that wasn't what was actually on the guy's knuckle. As if anyone was thinking that the MS-13 in Times New Roman font was actually on his knuckle. But if you just look at the headline, I thought to myself, wait, did Donald Trump's White House mess up? Did we put out a Photoshop picture? And I've been in this for 10 years. So obviously the average person who sees the headline is going to think, oh my God, the White House is putting out Photoshop pictures to excuse themselves deporting the wrong people. I cannot blame people, and I wish people took the time and the effort, but I can't expect them to when the economy was where it was and all these things were going on for so many years. How can they take the time to dispel every single rumor and every single headline when the media and the elites and every politician is working overtime to paint this man as the opposite of what he is? You have to understand why the country is where it is, or you can never, fight back and try to bring us back to a good place.
No, and I totally agree with that. And I've said many times, the ordinary person, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but they're working 2 jobs. They don't have time to research it. They're not into politics as much. So they hear something and, oh, that's it. And they believe it and they vote that way.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, Elizabeth, how do you, in your capacity, because this is so, like I said, look, I don't worry about this for me. I have 7 kids. I have grandchildren. I worry about their future. Yeah. And I really was concerned. I think if Kamala Harris would have gotten elected, this country we were done. We were finished. Absolutely finished. So how do you continue to get the word out to make people aware that, Donald Trump, his personality, the kind of guy he is, that, look, whether you agree with his policies or not, I believe that he really cares about the American people. He cares about this country. He loves this country. So he's trying to do the best thing. He might be wrong sometimes. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little concerned with these tariffs. I think maybe he just, he's so driven, he wants to make sure it gets done. Maybe he's moving a little bit too fast. I don't know. I'm not an economic genius. I don't know foreign trade as well as he does. I know he's had this position for the last 30 or 40 years with China, so he really believes it. But at the heart of it all, he cares about America. And these other people don't.
Yeah.
They honestly don't, Elizabeth. They're a bunch of hypocrites, in my opinion. How do you go down to Venezuela and want to bring an immigrant back when you allow these immigrants to come into this country and rape and murder and steal and take over apartment complexes, and you kept quiet and never said a thing?
And then call your fellow Americans racist for not liking that policy.
Exactly.
Don't forget. Yeah. It's so sad how phony it all is, and getting a front row seat to it. Even I got pretty sad about it a few times. I never really talked about it. In 2016, when I was on the campaign, I was obviously one of the lowest level staffers, so I didn't have that much intel on anything. But when there's only, 100 or so of you in Trump Tower and it's election day coming up, it's all hands on deck. You get access to a lot of cool things. And I think it was a few days from election day, and someone had asked my brother for help because he was a data analyst, like building, I think, the election day dashboard, something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's cool. And my brother was like, no, it's not cool. They asked me to do that because the RNC, like, stopped giving us their resources. So I watched as the Republican Party, again, of then, it's a very different Republican Party now, but I watched the party abandon their candidate that their own people were voting for because they thought he was going to lose and they want nothing to do with it. And I'm thinking to myself, everything I know is a lie. Like, all these people are giving money to the Republican Party at that point, thinking that they're helping Donald Trump. I was like, went from the volunteer center to my job. At one point in time, when things got really difficult, I found the closet in the storage room in Trump Tower where we kept all the gifts everyone sent him. So I'm reading these letters from soldiers around the world, from, people who have lost family in wars, people who have lost family to illegal immigrants. I mean, I'm reading these messages from people who think Donald Trump is going to save this country, who are telling him that they would do anything for him. I know the volunteers who are giving up their jobs, changing to the night shift so they can volunteer all day for them. Like, I know all these people that love this man and are believing in something and giving their money. And I'm watching the Republican Party turn their back on the guy because they don't like him and they don't want anything to do with it when he loses. And I was like, oh, everything is a lie. And that's when I think realized all of this, which is another reason I say I can't expect anyone else to know. They weren't there in 2016 on a presidential campaign. But the fact is, most of what we know from our politicians is not true. It's a sad reality in the single greatest country on the face of the earth, which I still believe is the greatest country on the face of the earth. But when you realize that the corruption here, sometimes is very similar to the corruption that comes from other places.
100%.
Places like my parents escaped from,
Yes.
That's why a lot of immigrants, by the way, vote for Trump, because they recognize it, because the government and what they've done, especially the last few years, reminds them of where they ran away from Cuba, from Russia, from communist countries. So for me, it woke me up, but I think a lot of people don't want to wake up to that because it is so scary. When you realize that the people that you donate money to and that you volunteer for and that you work for and that you believe represent you actually only care about themselves and lining their pockets, and that's best case scenario. Worst case is working for China and God knows what else. It's a really scary reality. And when it's on display like this, I mean, your own senators flying overseas to visit with MS-13 members, it's such a strange thing. And I think if you would have told this to anyone 20 years ago, they wouldn't have believed you.
No.
Like, that's how crazy it's gotten. But
Those same people that wouldn't stand up for the parents of the women that were raped and murdered by illegal migrants. No, can't even talk about it. They haven't even spoken to them.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy is mind-boggling. I just wish people would I talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I say, listen, you cannot trust these people anymore. They've lied to us consistently throughout the whole Biden administration. They lied about his dementia and everything else. They lie about everything.
And no one's asking questions.
No, they don't.
They're publishing books about it as if they weren't the ones covering up for Biden the whole time, profiting off of it, and no one's asking questions.
Exactly.
If we're admitting that this happened and Joe Biden was not all there, which we all knew the whole time, why is this not the biggest scandal in American history? Why is it buried away? It's the strange, again, if this would have happened 20 years ago and you asked any Democrat 20, 30 years ago, they would have said that's impossible. Like, we would never let anyone get away with that. And that's literally all that's happening. I mean, it's like an alternate reality where Donald Trump is a racist, all his supporters are Nazis, and the left is, I've never seen so much semblances of like what my parents warned me of, the fascism from Russia. I mean, it's just appearing on the left in what should be the most liberal, open-minded community. It's become the total opposite of that. Everyone is brainwashed to hate their neighbor or their teacher or their friend because they vote differently. And the people at the top are profiting off of all of it, while the people at the bottom don't realize what's going on.
Let me ask you a question, and you've summed it up wonderfully. Let me ask you a question. What do you think? I've never seen the amount of vitriol and hatred towards anybody.
Yeah.
What do you think is at the root of all of this? Being involved in politics now for the past 8 or 10 years, why do you think there is such a hatred of this man? It's like he's a demon. He's a devil.
Yeah.
It's like I've never seen anything like it. And I grew up on the street. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff, don't get me wrong, but the hatred against this guy.
Yeah.
And I've asked people, what is the root of all of this? Why? I mean, I think I know the answer. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I'm curious, honestly, what you say as well. The hatred in the media from the elites makes perfect sense, right? Because he played their game the way that they said wouldn't work, and he won.
Right.
I mean, they were humiliated on the world stage. They threw everything at him in 2016. or they thought they did. And then in 2024, they literally threw everything at him. And the guy that they thought they were going to lock up for life is now in charge of the United States of America. He's the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
So the hatred makes perfect sense on their end. I mean, he answers to no one. He wasn't beholden to a bunch of donors. He couldn't, I mean, most people in politics, they go in and end up making a bunch more money than they had when they went in. He was the other way
Yes.
around. They go in, they see the amounts of money, they see these, things being thrown at them, and they get automatically corrupt. I mean, I speak adamantly about term limits because I think anyone in politics for too long, it is impossible to remain a decent human being. Truly impossible. So someone like Donald Trump comes in and he has all this money. He has seen all the money in the world. You're not going to impress him with anything that you offered to Barack Obama or George Bush or anybody else. He answers to no one but the American people. And all you can do is tell the people how bad he is, or you risk this guy going in there who answers to no one. And that has never happened before. What do you do with that? So that makes sense to me, the hatred. They truly don't understand how he won. They are embarrassed and humiliated and bitter about all their plans failing. And they hated him from day one because he didn't answer to the same, puppet masters that they did. The hatred from the people, I think, is scarier. I think it comes from a little bit of ignorance. We're talking about college students. Obviously, a lack of any knowledge of what actually goes on in our country or in history. But a lot of it, like I said, I think it's just people that don't have the time and don't know what's going on. And it's just easier to do what the masses are doing. It's just so much easier to go about your life and think if my neighbor and my boss and, my son's friend and my son's teacher and everyone want me to think this way, it's easier than trying to stand up. And I don't blame anyone because not everyone has the privilege of getting to face their boss or their friend. I mean, you mentioned your daughter with the COVID vaccine. I mean, I know a lot of people that got that vaccine and didn't want it because not everyone has the privilege to be able to say, I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing and I'll still be okay. So I think it's too hard. And if things were easier for a lot of people and they had the time to do their research and talk to people, none of the tricks that the media played would have worked. But a lot of people in our country just don't have, that luxury.
Exactly. No, I agree with you there. My friends, I'm extending an opportunity to you to become part of the Franzese family. I have created a membership platform that for me is a legacy piece. I'm trying to bring back the sense of family and community into this country, something we've been lacking for a long time. Putting together like-minded people, giving them resources, whether it be in business or their personal behavior, anything that we can do to make your life better in whatever area you need improvement on, we're ready to provide it for you in this platform. So click on the link below or go to michaelfranzese.com/family. It is an offer that you shouldn't refuse, and this is a personal invitation from me to you to become part of my family. Let's switch over to what's going on at Harvard now and many of these universities, all this anti-Semitism and the position that Donald Trump has taken. It's if you're I don't understand why there is such a backlash. This anti-Semitism is okay as far as everybody's concerned, but God forbid you're racist, and it's basically the same thing. What do you think of his position holding back federal funds to the universities to try to not control their speech? He's not trying to do that, in my opinion. I think he's just trying to control these protests and get this thing back to normal. What's your position on that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a privilege that comes with taking federal funds, right? I mean, this is taxpayer money.
Right.
And again, I think if it was a different president and a different person and Kamala Harris would have won and said, I'm holding these schools accountable for A, B, and C, she would have been celebrated. So I think people have to realize that 20, 30, 40% maybe of the rage is simply because it's Donald Trump. And people will rage against him no matter what he does.
Such a good point.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a piece of it, let's be honest. On the other side of it is people that fear what they don't understand and think that this is a Republican trying to push his policies on a school, this is a public university and that's a public university. And if he can do this and the next one can do that, I think there's a debate to be had. I think every issue that comes up should be debated. I don't blindly follow anyone. I make fun of people that do it on the left and I will never do it on the right. I don't blindly support a candidate or a party or anything else. However, what has happened on these campuses is a disgrace, honestly, for our country. The fact that more people aren't concerned is very strange to me. Yes, anti-Semitism is a huge problem, and as a Jew, I cry about it regularly. I am a target of it. It affects me personally. However, these are not just anti-Semitic students. They're not just burning the Israeli flag, they're burning the American flag as well on all these campuses. So the fact that the entire country isn't saying, where did we go wrong, is very strange to me, which also proves how many people will put politics first, right? How
Right.
politicized every single issue has become. Because I know a lot of parents that are terrified that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on their kids' education for them to come back with these horrible views, but the parents don't want to say anything. They'd rather focus on that kid and understanding what happened with their child than, go and speak out. And I don't blame them. But if the entire world decided to speak out, things would be different. The fact is, this is a huge problem. We've had protests in our country before. I'm all about protests.
Hmm.
That's who we are. But when the majority of young people in your country are camping out in tents with flags of terrorist groups who stand for burning down the United States of America, we probably have a problem on
Hmm.
our hands. So I think automatically it's Donald Trump messed up. We hate Donald Trump. Whatever he does is bad. That's the first sign. And the second sign is a lot of people who genuinely agree with what's going on the campuses. And that's what no one's talking about. People are debating this as if it's an actual, constitutional question, which it is. But when you sit on TV, I watch the CNN coverage and the Fox coverage. It's a lot of people just taking their own party's side, and no one is actually having the conversation of why did Donald Trump have to do this? Why did Donald Trump get elected in the first place? Because people were terrified that a bunch of their children and grandchildren and friends are walking around in masks wearing the uniforms of terrorist groups in the United States of America. And we have a serious problem on our hands. And it might come from social media. It might come from the funding that these schools get from Qatar and other adversaries. It might come from the professors to begin with. But we have an actual serious problem. And they're so busy being mad at Donald Trump. No one wants to talk about that. You should be a Democrat or Republican and equally be upset if these kids are supporting terrorist groups in the United States of America in 2025. And no one is talking about that.
Yeah, so right on all of that. But, as a taxpayer, I have a little different point of view on this also. From what I understand, Harvard has $53 billion in their
Yes.
bank accounts.
And the largest endowment of
Yeah,
any
largest endowment.
college in the United States.
Why do taxpayers have to give them another $2 billion? What are they
Yeah.
doing with the money, number one? Why did we do that? I mean, they're tax exempt.
Yeah.
What more do we have to give them? Why don't they spend their own money? And I think if people would talk about that, taxpayers are concerned where our money is going.
Yeah. as
So
they should
what's
be.
the answer to that? Why do you need $2 billion of our money when you have $53 billion sitting in your bank
And that's another
accounts?
conversation, by the way. I have
Yeah.
a degree in nonprofit work.
Mhm.
When you are C3, you can't be political. That's another conversation. Why is
Yeah.
the entire school system turned political in the last few years? Why are our students not actually being taught the curriculum that they're telling the parents they're being taught? They're taught something else. Why is everything politicized in school when you're supposed to be a nonprofit? There's a huge conversation to be had, but
Yeah.
because everything is so politicized and everything is, are you team Trump or anti-Trump? No one wants to sit down and have actual
No,
conversations.
you're right. And Christian nonprofits, if they talk about politics,
Yeah.
they get threatened that
Exactly.
their exempt status will be taken away. It's so hypocritical again. But I hope some people raise that issue. You got $53 billion. Why do we need to give you $2 billion more? What are you doing with our money?
Or what's wrong with proving to the people what you're doing?
Yeah.
If you think you deserve the money, be as transparent as
Transparent.
possible. Go tell the people. Maybe the American people will celebrate that you're getting this money.
They're
But
probably-
tell the people.
They're probably going to lie about it.
Well, yeah, that's all anyone
Yeah,
does at
because
this
somebody,
point.
why don't you use some of the $53 billion?
Yeah.
You'll have $51 billion left if you
Exactly.
take two. What's the big deal? But anyway, so no, I think you're right. Anything that Trump proposes, they're going to go against it no matter what it is. And I think we've seen that so obvious, so evident. Let me ask you a question. You've had private conversations with Donald?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of guy is he?
It's so funny. People ask me this all the time, but either people are curious because they like him or they just don't believe what I say because they don't like, they don't like
Yeah.
him. But it's sad to me the reputation he gets considering he is the polar opposite. Like, that's the weirdest part. Like I told you in 2016, I realized everything in the headlines isn't true because I was living the opposite life. I was reading about the campaign in the papers and then living it and realizing that what was written down wasn't true. So I learned that very early on, but it's almost more painful when you know them personally. I've spent a lot of time with Donald Trump and his family, with his kids. I know them personally. They have done things for my family. We have had dinners together and personal conversations. And so when they're attacked, like, it actually hurts because
Mhm.
A, I'm watching them be hurt, and B, because I like these people. So when you tell me these people are monsters, it affects me as well.
Yeah.
I was attacked myself. I'm attacked every day because I'm who I am and I work for who I work for. So only when you're reading your own stories do you realize how much they can get away with Donald Trump. Because I remember reading stories about me, and with my history of depression and anxiety and everything else, it was not a good situation. But I read a lot of lies about me that put me in a really dark spot as well when I started in politics. And only then was I like, holy crap, they can lie about anything. And if they can do it with me and I'm a nobody, imagine how much time they're working to lie about Donald Trump. So again, you realize it early on, but he's so funny and so down to earth and so normal. I think the overwhelming theme, and I think Bill Maher actually just said this after he met with him. He
Yeah.
said, I told him things, and I liked Barack Obama. I liked Bill Clinton. I told him things I wouldn't have felt comfortable telling
Yes, he
them.
said
That's what he
that.
said. That is the best way to describe it. When you spend time with Donald Trump, I have to very often step back and say, you are talking to the president. Like, you forget because he's so down to earth and normal. And his sense of humor is the same as mine. And you can just tell that he's not rehearsed. You know, I've met politicians before. I grew up in New York. My dad worked with a lot of prominent politicians in New York. And even as a little kid, I didn't understand left or right, but I knew that they were always very polished and very rehearsed. And I looked up to it. I didn't realize what that actually meant and how dangerous that was. I just thought they were polished human beings. Donald Trump he's not. He's a real person. And when you hang out with him, you can tell that he might tell you something that is not something a politician should say, and he doesn't care. He's telling you the truth and how he feels, and you respond back the same way. So very often I have to stop myself and say, don't make that joke. That's the president. Like, you forget, I spent a lot of time with him on the campaign, and this is former president, possibly future president Donald Trump. And, we're talking about Elvis Presley and like making jokes about hurricanes. I mean, he's just a normal guy. It's like hanging out with like a family member, like an uncle or something. And I've always said if he could spend 10 minutes with every one of his haters, he would change truly every single mind, because it would blow your mind that he's, very cool and nice and funny, but that everything you knew was a lie. And I think that's what affects people like Bill Maher. He didn't say I now agree with him on anything. He just said my mind is blown because the guy laughed at himself. I didn't know he could laugh.
Yeah.
The guy made, that's crazy to me, because my number one thing when I think about time with Donald Trump is how much he laughs. So it's crazy how much they can distort reality. And I think the majority of people, if not all people, would actually change their minds if they spent 10 minutes with the guy. But he's so nice and so genuine and so funny and makes you feel like a valued member of the team. I think that's what's most important. There are days that have been really hard, and like he'll thank you for something you said on TV or tell you this was good or this was good. And I don't know if people realize he's not just not a Nazi or not a monster. He's actually a really, really good guy. And it's crazy what he's been, put through. So he must be the toughest guy on earth too.
Oh, no
But
doubt.
he's just, when I have hard days, I think like, what would Donald Trump do? And that's what I thought back in 2016 when I needed, a little bit of his confidence and faith in himself. And that's what I now have as well, because then he was going up against the media. Now he went up against, every single person who tried to put him behind bars and hit him with the mugshot and a gun to the head. He's had everything happen to him, and he smiled the entire way through. Like the entire way through, he would make jokes no matter what. And so when I'm having a hard day, I'm like, look what Donald Trump went through. You can handle it. Like, what would Donald Trump do? And I wish more people saw that side of him, because people will remember his contributions to politics forever and how he beat Hillary Clinton and all these things. But I wish people would think about the fact that the guy's slogan for many years before he ran was never, ever give up. And then he ran and they threw everything at him and he kept to that and he won. And for so many people, if you don't care about politics, you don't look at the politics, you can so easily gain inspiration from that and gain a life lesson of if you believe in yourself, anything's possible. And I wish more people paid attention to that part, because I think that honestly is his biggest contribution.
Well, so many people that I know, I've had conversation with Lara Trump, and, upon her first meeting with him, she said basically the same thing, and I hope people are listening, because you're a young woman that was just inspired by a guy who is very inspirational in every way, And let me ask you this. How do we continue to get the word out so that people do understand what Donald is all about? He's been saying the same things for 40 years. He's the same guy. He hasn't really changed. I think this time around in his presidency, he understands things, politics a little bit better. I see his demeanor and everything has changed a little bit from the first time he was in there, which I think is a good thing.
Well, he's also been through hell and back in between.
Exactly. He's been through everything, this guy. And, people have said to me, well, he's going to go on a revenge tour. I said, let me tell you something. It's not revenge. It's accountability. I said, you can't get away with the things that you do to somebody like that when you're in politics and you're supposed to have the trust of the American people and then just walk away scot-free. I want to tell you this. You said this earlier. The greatest, I don't know what to call it. It was the worst thing that ever happened in Biden's presidency. It was the worst thing that ever happened to this country, aside from the fact that during his vice presidency, he was treasonous. This guy sold out America. Yeah. Now, how do I know this? I've had 3 RICO indictments, 3 of them. 2 federal, 1 state. I know that statute inside out and upside down. The information that the GOP committee had when they were investigating him and his son, there is more information there to indict him.
Right.
Everybody has their day in court, but to indict him than there was in any of my cases.
Yeah.
You know, this guy is a treasonous guy, so he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and they let it go. This should not be let go. These people need to be held accountable. Nancy Pelosi earning $250 million as a congresswoman. We know what she did, insider trading and a lot of other things. It's obvious. They don't talk about that.
Insider trading is probably the least of it.
Yeah,
It's
the
probably
least of
so
it.
much more that people don't
No,
want
but
to talk about.
now is, I think Elizabeth Warren says she wants to start a committee to see if Donald Trump's family has profited over the tariff things.
Meanwhile, they're the only ones to have lost money.
Yeah, well, I said, you know what, that's a good idea, but let's start with everybody. Let's start with Nancy Pelosi and go across the board. They're not going to do it because there's so much hypocrisy. How do we get the word out? How do you, in your position, continue to get the word out, especially to young people, your generation, that this guy is for real, he is common sense, and that, the things that he stands for are really good for America, and it's not the other way? How do we continue to do that? Because you said it. Some of these people just don't have the time to investigate and research and learn about it.
So I think what's interesting is if you look at the polling, young people are more open to Donald Trump than older generations, which is not what anyone thought was ever going to be the case. They thought when Kamala Harris ran, there were certain groups that they thought they had in the bag, right? The black vote, the Hispanic vote. I mean, these are groups Democrats have relied on for years, but at this point it was almost obnoxious. They were like, these people will obviously vote for us. We don't even have to work on that. We'll work on this. The young people were part of that group. And the amount that Donald Trump pulled from young people was something they never expected. They knew, based on what had happened in 2020, they knew the shift with a lot of groups. They knew that black men, specifically looking at Donald Trump, they knew in the Latino community how many looked at Donald Trump. They knew what they were working with, but no one expected the young vote. I think that's what has surprised a lot of people. And for me, I am on the fence about a lot of things when it comes to young people, social media. I think a lot of what's going on is very dangerous, and we're not going to know actually how bad for many, many years. I mean, I grew up, I didn't have a Facebook till I was 16, 17. Now I have, nieces that are 9, 10 years old on Instagram posting pictures in, swimsuits. I think it's very strange what's out there. At the same time, because of social media, there's this transparency where you can't escape. Everyone's looking at your every single move. And I think young people get so much access to so much different media. They have a very different, lens looking at this world. They're not looking at the same headlines at, legacy media. They're looking at other things. So I think that's a piece of it. I think young people also can sniff out transparency, authenticity a lot easier than older people. I think young people don't really want to, align with someone who agrees with them on everything. They want to align with someone who they trust is at least coming to the table and telling the world what they actually feel. I think it's interesting to see young people turn on the Democrats in a way no one expected. Even I didn't expect it. Seeing young people say, I hate Donald Trump, but at least you know where he's coming from. And it's a lot of people, even on the left, that far left progressive group. Yes, they are socialists. They are Marxists. I am against everything they stand for. They're not Democrats either. No. So the Democrat Party has now lost every single pocket that it had. That's what people should pay attention to. So people are opening their eyes, maybe in different ways, but people are looking at how our country has changed in the last, I'd say, 10 years or so because Donald Trump came on the scene. So I think for a lot of people, it's just encouraging more of that, more conversations, more, time doing your own research if you can. I think Donald Trump and what happened to him is a huge problem. The fact that the truth just went out the window and people got away with everything that they spewed at him and I guess turning people against him in a way that was unfair because I think most people might have viewed it differently through a different lens. I think what they've done to our country and turning people against each other was much worse than what they did to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to be fine. He just won again. He's, the most popular politician in how many years? He's good. Yeah. The problem is what happens next. And if the media continues to get away with this and continues to turn us against each other. I grew up, I didn't even know how my parents were registered. I didn't care. I didn't care about my friends' parents. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat to this day. If you are a decent person and you treat me well, I don't care how you vote in any election. It doesn't matter. And I think more people have to go back to that before we can actually fix anything. If you can't have a conversation with your friend because their parents voted against Trump and your parents voted for Trump, we have bigger fish to fry. That is polar opposite America. It is the worst way to grow up. How can you learn anything if you surround yourself solely with people who agree with you on everything?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. I think that's the bigger issue. And I think that is the only reason young people started to turn away because the only people that will still have some conversations are young people. Everybody older went into their pockets. I'm a lifelong Democrat or lifelong
Hmm.
Republican. I hate Trump. I love Trump, and separated. At least young people around the country, around the world, hopefully, at least young people will have those conversations. All I want is for people to keep having conversations. I don't care if you despise Donald Trump. Sit down with me and tell me why. We're
Hmm.
not going to do anything as a country if we stop talking. I love watching liberal media. I love talking to people who disagree with me. I have no interest in surrounding myself with those who have the exact same views as me. I'm not going to grow in any way. I wish more people can go back to that. I think that's the only way to grow as a country, because where we are right now is a very dangerous point. It's not just about Donald Trump. It's not just Republicans versus Democrats. Both parties could crumble tomorrow. It doesn't matter if the people stand up, if the people still like each other, even if they differ on views. That's what we have to go back to. That's what we're missing. And that's what too many people are working against, because everyone in the media makes money off of people hating each other. And that's what we have to rise up against, no matter the cost.
I agree. Another good sign, for our young people. Is it Generation Z? Is that the Z?
I'm so old.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
even know anymore. I guess so.
But a good. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's been more Bibles sold to young
Hmm.
people now than any time in the last several decades, and a lot of these young people are saying they're looking for purpose.
Yeah.
So the good thing about that is they're looking for something. They're really getting interested in life and what's going on. So I think what you nailed it. They want to get into these conversations and really know what's really going on,
Yeah.
truthfully.
And people should have a purpose apart from politics. I think the problem is liberalism became people's religion on the left.
It is. Have
That's
you
the
have
problem.
you had any conversation with Lindy Lee?
I have not personally, but I've seen her episode with you. I watched
Yeah,
her talk to Lara. I've seen a lot of,
yeah.
she is the perfect source of what people are unfortunately buying into.
And
Like,
she
she perfectly describes everything that
and
happened.
she's being demonized now, and of
Of
course she's been
course.
corroborated because Biden's own people are writing books about it
Yeah.
and verifying everything that she's saying. Let me ask you: have you had any backlash too when you all of a sudden supported Donald Trump?
Yeah. I didn't expect it to be as bad. Again, I was so naive and so in love with our country, which I still am, but like through a different lens. Like, I just thought people would be like, "Oh, the girl who's the daughter of immigrants has her own opinion
Hmm.
and wants everyone to have their own opinion. Like, that's great." That's not at all what happened. When I first was kind of like outed as a Trump supporter, it was kind of out of nowhere. I kept it a secret that I worked on the campaign because I was still modeling. I had no future in politics. I didn't think I did. I wanted to go back to school and live a normal life. And then my husband and I got married at Mar-a-Lago, and people found out about it, and people were going to write a story. So I just came out and told people my story. And the positivity was also overwhelming, but the backlash from people that, to this day, obviously we're all called Nazis and everything else, but I was a 23-year-old girl who just said I worked for a presidential campaign. I actually probably also told people that it got me out of a deep depression. That's all. I didn't say anything.
Hmm.
And I was, a Nazi and a white supremacist. I lost most of my contacts in the modeling world, my friends. The hit pieces were so disgusting. I still have family that doesn't talk to me because they believe the hit
Really?
pieces. It it was scary to me, but it was also more surprising than scary. Like, I don't know how naive I could have been, but I didn't believe it could happen, and that's why after that I changed my views even more so on Donald Trump, because I thought, they're literally blatantly lying about me and no one holds them accountable. So imagine what they can do,
Hmm.
to him. They lied about everything, and they attacked my skating, my education, my parents, my religion. If you Google me now, obviously I've done work for 10 years, but you can still find a million lies. And so for anyone that tells me, oh, I read this about Donald Trump, I say, yeah, you can read that about me too. It doesn't mean that's
Hmm.
the case. But yeah, I got a lot of death threats. When it first happened, I didn't leave my house for almost a month.
Death threats.
Yeah, I developed a really, really bad like stomach ulcer. There was 2 weeks when I physically couldn't get out of bed at all. Um, I mean, Again, now I have more experience and I understand it's not that serious and I
Hmm.
wasn't that famous. But when you have a few outlets write about you and then, hundreds or thousands of messages, you think in your brain the whole world's talking about you.
Mm.
And when you have hundreds of messages that are, threatening, you're scared to leave I was genuinely afraid to leave the house. I would walk the streets and wonder who's going to hurt me, because it was a bunch of people telling me that I'm a horrible person. A lot of it was anti-Semitic too, that, Hitler should have finished the job and all these other
Hmm.
things, and what they want, how they want to hurt me. And so I thought to myself, how can I ever leave the house again? And only now do I, laugh at the messages and go on, and I realize it's just the internet. But to a 23-year-old girl, I was absolutely petrified. And between people believing the lies, the horrible things that were said, the death threats that were coming in, I had no idea what to do with myself. And like now it's just a regular part of life. But 5 or 6 years ago when it started, I was baffled. And only then again was I reminded of like how tough Donald Trump must be, because this is just a teeny tiny part of his everyday. But I was just attacked for absolutely everything. And it's funny because I don't think I was a registered Republican. I was no longer working in politics. I really wasn't doing anything. I had just gotten married and I was taking college classes. And it was just like, let's ruin this girl because she supported Donald Trump in one election.
Oh, they're all a bunch of cowards, actually,
Yeah.
especially these people online that, cowards. It's almost demonic, these people. They are in a cult. I mean, Lindy said it, it's a cult. This is their religion. I believe that the progressives should break off and start their own party.
I agree.
Because we need a multi-party system in this country. Nobody wants it to go away, but they should be their own party. They're so far left of normal Democrats.
I don't think there are normal Democrats anymore. Like, if you're a normal
no.
Democrat now, you probably agree with most of Donald Trump's policies, but hate Donald Trump, the person.
Yeah.
But then you also hate this faction of your party, which, they are proud socialists,
Yeah.
proud Marxists, whatever they call themselves. Like, Bernie Sanders is on his tour now with AOC, and they do rally a lot of people. That's the only Democrat I've seen since Barack Obama who's been able to rally people at all.
They do. I don't get it.
Who is your party? Like, that's all you're almost left with. The other Democrats don't come out. Michelle Obama is struggling with, a YouTube podcast. Like, she can't get views. Like, the old party is dead. And I don't know how they recover because, like you said, that part is not the Democrat Party. That's a different party. Bernie Sanders admits he's not a Democrat. That is a party of socialists and young people who proudly burn the American flag. I don't know many old school Democrats that stand with them at all. So I don't actually know who the Democrats are anymore.
Well, I have to say something. If AOC ever runs for president, you should run against him. Because the contrast would be so glaring for everybody to see. I really mean that. When I look at her, people say, oh, it's the woman. It has nothing to do with women. There are many bright, wonderful. My wife is tremendous. It's not that, but they throw that at you right away. It's just that she's not qualified. The same way Kamala Harris was not qualified. Forget all this racial nonsense. I'll never forget, I was listening to her and she puts forth her economic plan to how she's going to save businesses in America. I said, this woman probably never even wrote a check, never did anything in business in her life, and she's going to run the biggest economy in the world. It makes no sense whatsoever, but people just don't see it. You should run against AOC if she runs. I'm telling you right now.
I've thought about running for it. People have offered me to run. Last midterm, people told me to run for Congress, and I didn't do it. I've thought about it.
If she runs, run against her. I'm telling you. You'll win hands down because the woman is just...
My first endorsement. I'll take it.
What is your future? What are you thinking of doing? You have my strong endorsement.
Thank you. I don't know because, like you've mentioned, things that happen in my life just kind of happen. I try to work my butt off in everything that I do. I always do, but it always seems to come from God. I don't think any of the situations I've been put in were because of me. Donald Trump didn't have to, hire me. I was a 21-year-old without a college degree. I didn't have to get on that campaign. I got on the campaign because the intern that delivered my letter to, the head of the data department did it because God was watching over me and wanted that letter to be delivered and wanted that to be read and wanted my brother and I on that campaign. I was meant to meet my husband on the 2016 Trump campaign and be a part of that and then work for the president and do all these things. And a little piece of me truly believes that because A, I believe in God wholeheartedly, and B, I'm the daughter of two immigrants who risked everything to come here, and I would die for this country, and I am obsessed with America, and I can't believe I'm here, but I love everything I'm doing, and it makes sense because 2, 3, 4-year-old Liz, I would cry at the national anthem, and I was Sarah Palin in the school mock election. This is all I've ever wanted, so It all makes sense. So I think God is in charge. At the same time, I'd be lying if I said that I'm not definitely contemplating going into the administration. Donald Trump is, unless, third term happens, Donald Trump is in for 3.5 more years. I would love to work for Donald Trump. I don't think I would work for anyone else in politics ever again. So I think unless I ran myself, my political career is probably over after Donald Trump is out. So I think for me, I would want to go in and work for him. My journey with him has been, nearly 10 years. My entire life is what it is because of Donald Trump. I have my husband and my career and faith in myself because of everything I learned from him. I truly believe that man changed and saved my life in many ways. So it would be an honor to go in and, to work in the White House, to work for him, to work in the administration anyway. So I'm considering that at some point for sure. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider running for office. There aren't a lot of, young Jewish women on the Republican side.
Right.
It's nice to stand out. There are a lot of people on the Republican side that get a bad rap because, misogynist, this, that,
Hmm.
I have seen only the opposite of that. Like I said, people encouraged me to run a long time ago. I think it would be a privilege and an honor. I think I'd have a lot of fun. I don't really know. I think God's going to give me the answer, but I would not be surprised at all if I ran for public office, probably after Donald Trump is out, because I would like to work for him. But what I've seen in politics has made me not want to work for anyone else ever again.
Well, let me ask you, what about,
Yeah.
have you met J.D. Vance?
Once or twice I have, yeah, and
What do you think of him?
based on how the Democrats are going, I can only imagine JD Vance would be the next president. I don't know
Hmm.
who else they could put up against him. I think I'm so turned off by politics. I don't know if I could work for anyone other than Donald Trump.
Really?
Just because of the personal, like, I just trust that man. I think JD Vance is great, but I trust Donald Trump. I have been helped in ways I can't even explain by him and his family. I on a personal level, like, I love that family, and I would do anything for him and for them, and it'd be an honor to work for this country, but obviously to do it under him because of the personal connection. I don't think my nervous system can handle more politics in general. After that, I obviously wholeheartedly support JD Vance or whoever runs after him, and I can only imagine they win because Democrats only have AOC. But I think for me, after Donald Trump's out, it would only be if I ran myself. Like, I think that would be the way to do it because, like I said, I'm having fun now for the first time speaking as myself. I was speaking as the Republican Party for,
Hmm.
the last year and representing Donald Trump in other ways before that. So it's the first time I'm speaking as me, and it's a very, very good feeling. And I love talking to people who disagree with me, and I love meeting voters. And, in 24, a lot of what we did was tour the country. We
Right.
met with people in different states around the country. That's what I enjoy. I want to be in the ground and meet people. I want to meet people who disagree with me and have conversations. Like, Donald Trump did it for those people, and that's who I learned from is Donald Trump. I wouldn't be doing it for anyone but those people, and I think I would really, really enjoy running for office and being my own person and just trying to be a teeny tiny piece of what breaks the system. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not that naive. I'm not as strong as Donald Trump. I think the more people inspired by him to break the system, the better.
Well, listen, I would encourage you to do that because doing a little research on you and then now sitting down with you for the past hour and seeing your perspective, I think you have a really, really good perspective on what's going on. So I would encourage you. We need people like
Thank
yourself.
you.
Absolutely. So listen, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I think this is going to be very valuable for people to hear, just your perspective on Trump and everything else. So many people have told me the same thing. When you sit down with this guy, he's very endearing. I mean, look, even Bill Maher, who I sat down with a couple of weeks prior to that, one thing I like about Bill, he's really honest. He puts things
Yeah.
out there. He said, I'm never going to be a Trump fan. He said, but I want to give him, when we had a conversation, I want to give him the opportunity. I don't want to disagree with everything that he says. And I think I know he did. He came back with even a better opinion and better perspective from him. And he's telling his own people and his own party off all the time. So
Yeah.
I think, if he can be swayed by Donald just by sitting down with him, then anybody else could. But we need people like yourself out there and talking about it. So I really appreciate this sit down. Thank you very much. Hope we
Thank
get to
you.
do it again at some point in time. And if you ever see Donald, just tell him he's got another supporter out there that's working hard
I will
for
do that.
him.
He would love you. I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll happen very soon.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I do. It's so great when a young person comes up there and speaks so, so intelligently, has so much common sense, speaks so clearly. What a story. To overcome adversity like that her whole life. She's a very determined person. She wanted to be a skater. She worked hard 7 days a week, did everything necessary. She went through it all, and it's very, very tough. Skating is tough. I don't know how these hockey guys stay on those skates and do the things that they do, but it's very, very tough. And then a series of accidents and misfortunes, and she couldn't pursue that. She was going to be in the Olympics. She couldn't pursue that. That's devastating. I know. When you have your life set on something and you work so hard, and then it doesn't come to pass because of an injury or whatever else happens, it's so hard. But what happened? A chance meeting with a photographer. Her mom, was walking in the park with her dog. The photographer asked to take a photo of the dog and her mom, who obviously suffers through these things. The moms suffer through everything with their children. We know that. My wife, what she went through with my daughter, me to an extent, but it's the moms that always get hit the hardest. Ladies, you know that. Hey, please come and do something to help my daughter. And what happens? You know, her daughter gets a modeling career, you know, and it blossoms and she's doing terrific. Not something she really wanted. She was a shy girl, but she did it and it helped her. And then what happened? Whether we like it or not, it was Donald Trump that made another life-changing thing happen in her life. And she's become I don't want to say a fan, not a fan, a supporter of the man Donald Trump is. She met his family. He's helped her tremendously. And you know what, people? Everybody I know that has met this man personally, even Bill Maher, said he was great to be around. He's just, there's something dynamic about him, you know, and it's a shame. It really is. No matter who it is, whether it be Trump or anybody else, to demonize somebody, just not good. So I hope you listen to this girl's story. You know, you never know where something is going to come from that's going to help you overcome adversity. But tremendous story, ladies. I hope you enjoyed it. Guys, too. And that's it for today. So how do I always leave you? Same way. You know it's going to change. Don't get bored because this is important. Be safe. Be healthy. God bless each and every one of you. God bless Elizabeth and her family. And God bless America. And yes, stay tuned because I will see you next time. Take care. My friends, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to give you an opportunity to become my partner in business. Franzese Wine experiencing tremendous growth over the past couple of years, and we're going to experience even further growth in the next few years. You're going to have an opportunity to be my partner because you've been supporting me, you've been my fan base, and I want to share this with you. So go to invest.franzesewine.com, and offer you shouldn't refuse.